I can't remember the last time something I expected to go so poorly actually went so well. I turned on a stream Monday morning of the Richmond gun rights rally, fully expecting to see someone start something, and then someone reacts defensively, and then there's panic, and there's chaos, and then suddenly the media and Democrats have the story they've been cheering on. Gun owners are violent, racist, terrible people who need a slap from the state to get in line. So retrospectively, I admit I worried too much about how this thing would turn out, and I may have prompted you to worry too much too. But I don't know what else we were supposed to do, given a week plus of building this thing up to be some sort of KKK minority hunting safari.
Several hate groups, supposedly some white nationalists.
White nationalists.
White nationalists.
White supremacists.
White supremacists.
White supremacists. White extremists.
There might be some people in this crowd that may want to get violent.
There's certainly a lot of concern here.
There's a lot of concern about the potential for violence.
The mass shooting cheer squad hasn't had this much pep since the Joker release. And then the end result couldn't have been further from the predictions. Not only did 22,000 plus freedom-loving Americans protest the state of Virginia's infringements in total peace without even a single violent incident, but they even cleaned up the mess too. There are countless photos and videos of people taking care of the trash on the way out. Better yet, they even recycled it.
It's a birthday present for Ralph Northam.
It wasn't doomsday. None of the predicted terror ever happened, to the point that CNN actually had to admit it.
Look, those threats which caused the governor to call for a state of emergency have simply not emerged. The police very clear in saying that they have not had a single arrest during this rally.
By the end of the day, there was in fact one and only one arrest, but it wasn't for violence. It was for repeated refusal to remove a mask. And I don't know what this person's politics are, but she doesn't look like a tiki torture to me. In a tense situation as smeared and vilified and misrepresented as this one was, with everyone as heavily armed as they were, all it takes is one. Just one idiot in the tens of thousands, and the whole thing falls apart into a self-defeating mess. But there wasn't even one. Not one person misbehaved. Not one person attacked. Not one person caused a panic. It was a flawless performance by a sea of American patriots. And better yet, not only did the rally attendees avoid legitimizing the political narratives of Governor Northam and the media, they actually thoroughly debunked them. For all the fear we were sold about who might die in Richmond on Monday, the only casualties were the narratives themselves. Tragically, though, those have been thoroughly destroyed beyond recognition. Thoughts and prayers. Leading up to the rally, it was relentlessly portrayed as some sort of Nazi or white supremacist event. NBC reporter Ben Collins on Sunday even called the event a straight-up white nationalist rally, ironically urging reporters to vet information before they send it out, so their rumors don't feed the neo-Nazi propaganda. And then he had to delete his tweet urging accuracy on account of its wild inaccuracy before doubling down with warnings about white nationalists planning violence, plans that, of course, never materialized. And even when it was no longer speculation, even when this event was underway and it was clear this isn't a bunch of bloodthirsty bigots, actually it's a bunch of red-blooded Americans who just want to be left alone, they still tried to maintain the smear. Apparently, Ben's colleague at MSNBC, Craig Melvin, didn't get his accuracy memo because he falsely reported on Monday's broadcast several times that there were thousands of white nationalists in attendance, despite no evidence provided.
This is a scene in Richmond. Armed militia, white nationalist groups from all over the country taking part on MLK Day. Right now, thousands of gun rights activists, white nationalists, militia groups all swarming the Virginia state capitol.
Now granted, I wasn't there, but I have watched a lot of stream footage from Monday, and not only were there not thousands of white nationalists, I didn't see even one. In fact, the only swastika I saw was on a mock-up of Ralph Northam's armband. And wherever these white nationalists were, they sure did a terrible job of enforcing the ethnic purity. This was not a white identity issue. It wasn't even a uniquely white perspective. There are endless clips that MSNBC will never ever play.
They've always brought up the issue of race as though it's nothing but white rednecks and hillbillies out here who care for the Second Amendment.
As an African American on MLK Day, it's
critically important that we preserve the ability to defend ourselves and our loved ones.
Are you a white supremacist?
Yeah. Am I a white?
I was told there'd be
this
white
ain't
supremacists.
me. I got dreads.
Oh wow, you really are blackface. Like,
United we stand.
that's right, brother.
And that's another narrative busted, that this event was only for enraged, spiteful, bitter people. No. They were happy and they were funny. In fact, that might be the real reason they don't want to play these clips. Happy, funny people are often the most persuasive. I don't know how you could see these sites and conclude it's the evil white man keeping the minorities down, but if that sort of white exclusion does concern you, perhaps your concern would be more appropriately directed at the governor.
Racist white supremacists, make a hole. Racist. I'm using my white privilege. Make a hole. Step to the side. I am Governor Ralph Norton, and I am in blackface today.
Okay, fine. Maybe it wasn't a white identity rally. Maybe there were some diverse voices, but still, it was an overwhelmingly white male crowd. This is how the Washington Post begrudgingly covered the event after their dreams of a Christchurch Charlottesville mashup didn't come true. Okay, so before it was white nationalists. Now it's just white. I thought the problem was white people with discriminatory views. Now the problem is just white people, period. And if it is as simple as white people bad, I'm not sure why you're excluding those prized people of color that we just observed from your coverage. But regardless, the narrative of evil straight males enforcing their will also failed. It turns out that among the women and the gay people and the trans people who are constantly under attack, as these media outlets otherwise love to report, many of them actually prefer to be armed to thwart those attacks.
I think it's definitely very important, especially for women, because it keeps us safe. I think that's fundamental. I feel safe, especially with guns.
The ideological narrative died, the demographic narrative died, and so did the narrative that guns are inherently dangerous. David Hogg claimed on Twitter that Nazis would be threatening children at gunpoint.
Right now, we can't show up because the Second Amendment is being used to actively threaten to kill people, including children. Thank you, and fuck Nazis.
A friend of mine called him a breadline lesbian. I think that's a perfect description, and quite frankly, he should be forced at gunpoint to eat some cake. AOC said much the same, even after the rally was already underway, wondering why the event wasn't presumed to be criminal.
There's this gun rights protest that's happening down in Richmond.
Right.
And
on MLK Day.
On MLK Day, and here are all of these people flying Confederate flags with semi-automatic weapons, and there's almost no police officers at that protest.
First of all, I've seen no evidence of even one Confederate flag at the event, but even if there was one there, is flying a flag a crime? Is carrying a gun a crime? That's Amendment 1 and Amendment 2, the exercise of which we're now saying should be presumed criminal. Second, there were in fact plenty of police officers in Richmond. I haven't seen the exact figure, but you can see them in nearly every photo, ironically enforcing borders that Democrats suddenly believe in. Third, plenty of other police forces were there, not just for law enforcement, but for constitutional preservation.
If the bills go through as proposed, they will not be enforced. They're unconstitutional. We swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Virginia, and that's what we'll do.
And fourth, and most importantly, let's actually grant the premise here. Let's say this event was under-policed relative to its attendance numbers. You're telling me that it was under-policed, but there was still exactly zero violent crime? How could it possibly be true that guns are inherently dangerous, inherently or at least implicitly criminal, and yet tens of thousands of people carrying them, some of them hilariously lugging 30-pound 50 caliber rifles around all day, no less, with too few police officers to control them, these inherently dangerous people with inherently dangerous tools committed no criminal acts whatsoever? How is it possible that the most well-armed civilian gathering I can remember was universally peaceful, making a police presence totally unnecessary anyway? Well, geez, it's almost as if the two are related. It's almost as if a well-armed society is much better behaved and much kinder to one another. You will never be called sir more than you are at a gun range. And the same goes for every ma'am and sir out there as well. Everyone in Richmond on Monday destroyed the narratives so thoroughly, they're now reduced to pushing this one. Despite massive rally attendance, polls show strong support for gun control legislation in Virginia. We're not going to wait to see what sort of effect this has. We'll just presume the numbers won't change at all. My, how far we've come from Monday will be an apocalyptic genocide to actually, Monday didn't matter at all. And don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting Monday's rally to change everything. I'm not expecting it to halt Ralph Northam and the Democrats in the Virginia General Assembly. They will almost certainly pass constitutionally suspect laws, and Virginians will have to fight them in the courts, and they'll have to fight them at the ballot box in the future. And the Washington Post may be right. We may not see a significant shift in public opinion right now. But I guarantee you, the sights and the sounds that you created on Monday will matter in the long term. Making your voices heard in a principled, peaceful, and even funny way was more than enough to show the average observer that you were lied about, that you are not racially obsessed extremists, that you're just regular people who prefer to keep your safety and your security in your own hands, not surrender that responsibility to the state. By doing that, you will get some gears spinning in people's heads. This is exactly what happened to me about 5 years ago when I thought I was on the common sense gun control side. And then people came to me with a welcoming attitude, assuming my good intentions, trying to persuade me with reason, not shame. And I realized, you know what? These people aren't kooks, actually. They're just like me, and they know their stuff, and they're really damn funny. When you actually bother to listen, they just want to be left alone. They just don't want to be pushed around, and you know what? Neither do I. I get it. I didn't reach my current perspective overnight. It developed over months and years because someone got the gears spinning to start all of that development a long time ago. I guarantee that you started some of that same development in the minds of thousands this week. To those of you who showed up, I already admired you for your courage. Now I admire you for your flawless performance under pressure as well. I'd give you a Sig Heil in celebration, but you know, they're on to us Nazis. We gotta tone it down. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.